Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Writers. This is June the 6th, 2016, and with you today is myself, Carl. The always wonderful Joel is unfortunately not with us this week. We'll get to that in a second. With us today, we do have one of our favorite break glass in case of emergency guest hosts, Mr. Andrew Forbes from the Hockey Writers. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on. Always happy to be with you guys.
Yeah, we are live, our first ever live show. It's great to have you with us.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome to be part of this inaugural live show, and I'm looking forward to talking some puck with you, Carl.
Yeah, and for those who are tuning in, if this is terrible, we apologize in advance. But we have a chat open. We've got the Q&A. Feel free to send in your messages. Let us know some of your thoughts on the game that we're watching. We're right in the middle of Game 4. Pittsburgh up 2. No, they're up 1-0. Pittsburgh up 1-0 right now, in between the first and the second period. And we're just going to chat a little about that game, a little bit about the week that was. But I guess first, let's talk about Joel. There's a reason that he's not here. For those who tuned in last week, you may know that there was some stuff we had to edit out. You know, Joel got a little carried away with himself, as he can sometimes, and he just decided to perhaps a live show wasn't the best. You know, we talked about it, and he was like, you know what, I'm just gonna bow out from this one. So could be back next week. We'll see how this goes. But you know, Joel's a fiery guy.
Hey, passion's the name of the game when it comes to hockey, guys.
Absolutely. So, Andrew, let's just, as we're going into first intermission here, let's just talk about some of the news of the week that's happened in the NHL. Some news from today, kind of the latest news on expansion. Obviously, we talked on our show last week about the possibility that the Board of Governors would have something coming down about a week after season ended, leading up to the draft. Kind of, I guess, primarily so that people would know the rules and the different ways that they would be impacted by expansion leading into the draft, so you can plan accordingly if that's something that you need to do. There were some rumors today of the fact that expansion might be put on hold, and Carolina is a possibility of moving. And they didn't say to Las Vegas or Quebec, but I think everyone sees Vegas as the number one place. What do you think about those rumors of a possibility of Carolina moving on out to Vegas?
Yeah, I saw those rumors come out, and a lot of speculation right now as to what exactly is going to happen. But as it seems right now, expansion could be put on hold this year at least. There's a lot of talk that maybe Las Vegas won't be the team that moves there. It'll be the expanded team, and then what will happen maybe within the next 3 years is Quebec City gets, maybe one of the struggling teams move to Quebec City. Right now, that seems to be what the speculation or the reports have, but. I think you're right in saying that Las Vegas is probably going to be the first place to get a team when they do decide to expand. I think right now the league itself still has to figure out all the ins and outs of how they're going to do this expansion, whether it be, the expansion draft and the rules surrounding all that, and kind of what the bill is going to be in terms of how to put that team together. So as of right now, I don't know, if expansion is going to be happening this year. I think we're getting pretty down to the wire in terms of if we're going to do it. It's got to happen soon rather than later. So.
Well, definitely. And the talk is that it would be for the 2016-17 season. So it still gives them, another year to get things together. And, when Winnipeg moved, we saw them move pretty quickly once they said it. So a move seems much easier than an expansion. I know, like, the last time they did expansion, I wasn't too involved in what the ins and outs were. But I know, Nashville, Columbus, Minnesota are things that were around for some time. So you definitely think that it would take some while to get things going up there.
And I mean,
in Vegas.
the thing is too, is Vegas has been kind of a speculatory city that's wanted a team for quite some time, at least the last 2 to 3 2 to 3 years, anyways. I mean, Vegas has always been in for a pro sports team, and this seems to be the route that they're going to go. Um, but as you mentioned, when it comes down to moving a team, whether it be the Hurricanes, whether it be, you know, uh, an Arizona or somebody of that magnitude, it's going to be a lot easier than trying to figure the ins and outs of the expansion, because you simply pick that team up and you're moving it. You change your owners, and there's not as much gray area per se. So when that time comes, if that time comes, and somebody is moved to Quebec or Vegas, I mean that's going to be, it could happen just like that, as you mentioned, within a couple weeks, right? So that's something a little bit different than whether they expand or not.
For sure. And if you see a team relocate, to me, Arizona seems like the team. Obviously, Carolina's attendance has dropped the last few years. They were about a thousand less on average than Arizona was this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just with Arizona, the stadium situation there and all of those things, it's just something that really leads them to be able to leave, because now I think they're suing the city for the struggles of their arena and trying to get out of that deal now after the city wanted them out of the deal. It's just not a nice situation at all. So
Well, to me, the Arizona situation is just, I mean, it's such a rocky road right now. As you mentioned, they've kind of gone back and forth with the city, but the way they put that team in Glendale, I mean, it's not an easy place to get to if you want to come from somewhere else, in the surrounding area. If you want to drive in, a lot of hockey fans like to go to the arena, have a few drinks, and enjoy the game. If you're driving in, you're not going there, you're not having a few drinks. You're going there to watch the game, and that's it. So, it does take a little bit of that experience away from going to an NHL game. Um, had they put it in the heart of Arizona, maybe you have a different story. And it's really a sad thing, because I think that there are like a huge amount of fans there to support a team. And this team's got such a bright future. You got the Christian Dvoraks coming up, Duclair, Domi. If Mike Smith could get back on track, or Louis Domingue showed that he could play some good hockey in net. Uh, Ekman Larson. I mean, Shane Doan has been um, basically the leader of that team for his entire career, from Winnipeg leading up to the move to Arizona. So, I mean, that's a team that's got uh, a lot of heart and a lot of passion, a lot of excitement coming up through the pipeline. So, it's sad if that's the team that ends up moving, but as you mentioned, just the situation doesn't seem right in Glendale.
for sure. And I think you look at, as you mentioned, the number of young guys on that team, they're definitely set up well for the future. And there's talks that they might go back to, I think, the old Phoenix Suns stadium in downtown Phoenix, which
Mhm.
is a possibility. I don't know. I haven't actually been there to see the setup for hockey there and what that looks like. But for me, Glendale's not working for them. They've got to find a
No.
way to get out of that and get into something else. So
And you almost want to just give it a try for one season in that the old Suns arena, and just see how it goes. See if you can draw more attendance based on your demographic and your locale. But the way they've kind of stuck them in Glendale is, it's the same as the Senators being in Canada. Stick them in the downtown core. That's where people are going to go watch a game. It in a sense, it's a tourist attraction. So why not put them where you're going to get the viewership?
for sure, yeah, and it's a tough situation all around. So we'll see. I don't think they're going to come out in a week and a half and say we're not expanding, we're moving a team. I expect that they're going to come out and say that they're putting a team in Vegas uh, for the 2017-2018 season.
Mm-hmm.
What is that where you're sitting too?
Yeah, I think if they're going to expand, it won't be next season. It'll be like you said, the 2017-18 season, and I do truly believe that Vegas is going to be the spot. I mean, Bettman's kind of had this this tie to put somebody in Vegas for the last couple of years, and I think he's finally going to get his wish.
Yeah, and Quebec. Do you think Quebec gets a team right now?
Um, Again, I don't think right now. If they do, it's going to be in the next few years. So you're probably looking 2018, 19, possibly, maybe even 2019, 20, right? It's going to be a few years for Quebec, and I think I mentioned it when I was on this show once before. Is for whatever reason, Bettman doesn't see the success that Canadian markets have had for the NHL for whatever reason. I mean, he finally moved Winnipeg back up here, but it took how long to do that? And it's the same situation with Quebec. There's a fan base there. They want to have that arena. They want to fill that arena. They want to have their Nordiques back. Give them that team. They're I don't know. To be honest, I haven't been a huge fan of expansion. I think what you're doing by expanding is you're watering down the league. I think you want the most talented players in the game to play in your league. Why not run with four lines of completely successful, talented, skilled players? At this point, I think when you expand to 31, 32 teams, you're going to start watering down the league, and that's my view on it, anyways, and that's the way I've kind of looked at it for some time. So
And I'm with you on that. I'm about 50-50 if I think Quebec actually gets a team or not. I just while I get the Canadian markets, I think going back to struggling ones, as you said, it took Winnipeg uh, years to be able to finally get a team back there. Um, but I think the main reason why I think expansion is the way they're going to go versus relocation is the $500 million paycheck that the NHL is going to get
yeah,
for putting a new team there. And if you tell each owner what's that split across 30 teams, what like $16 million, $17 million a team, that's a hard thing to say no to for those
there's two superstar
franchises.
players that you're paying for now.
Yeah, and while they're only a little bit spread out more, I think it'll be just fine for those owners to
Okay.
justify it. So, all right. One thing, you were at the NHL Combine this week. We're able to check out some of the players getting ready, testing, meeting with teams for the NHL draft. Was there anyone who stood out to you? Is that a thing that you can see at the Combine? Is uh, someone standing out that really changed your opinion of them?
You know what? I was telling you in the pre-show that this is my third year going to the combine. I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to get to know these young kids who are coming up because this is before they make the $1 million. This is these kids are genuinely interested in playing the game, and yeah, you know what? I think the testing is sometimes overrated. I mean, we looked at Sam Bennett a couple years ago, not being able to do a single pull up, and yet he still went, on the higher end of the first round. So, do GMs and scouts really take a lot of value out of it? I don't think so. I think the best process at the combine is the interview process with the teams. I think that's where teams really get to know the players that they're looking to draft. But if anybody helped themselves in the actual fitness testing, it's Luke Kunin. And great article by my colleague Mark Sheik, who's there with me, and up on the Hockey Writers right now. Luke Kunin finished in the top 15 in multiple categories, and in terms of the vertical jump, he was at least 2 or 3 inches higher than anybody else, which is pretty incredible for a kid of his size. But at this point, he's the 11th ranked North American skater. I think he might have earned himself a spot in mid to late first round, which would be really good for him.
Yeah, so that's a guy that probably would have been second round probably for
Early
those.
second round, I
Yeah.
would say. Yeah. The other guy that I got a chance to actually talk to a little bit was Carter Hart from the Everett Silvertips. Um, I think right now he dropped down to the second ranked North American goalie at this point, but at the combine he actually was in the top 20 in a couple categories. Finished I believe in the top 10 with the VO2 test, which is pretty great for he's a small kid in terms of goalie standards nowadays. Um, but even third highest in pull-ups. But again, you can take whatever value you want out of the fitness testing. Maybe you look at the 12. He did 12 pull-ups, and you say, well, he's a smaller guy, so he's pulling less
Yeah,
weight, right?
sure.
But I got a chance to talk to him. I think he's a guy that teams looking for goalie prospects will take a good look at in the second round. A really genuine kid, wants to be there. The one thing he said to me, which was unbelievable, was he grew up a Montreal fan, and I asked him because I do have a feeling that Toronto is taking a good hard look at this kid. I said, like, what would it be like for you as a Montreal fan growing up, putting on the blue and white? And his response was just, wherever I go, I just want to hear my name called in the draft. And I think that just goes to show you the kind of player he's going to be, the kind of person he's going to be in the dressing room. Really reminded me of the way James Reimer kind of talks with media. He's not cliche, but he's very modest. And whoever gets him, I think, is going to get a good kid. He won CHL Goalie of the Year this year, and when I asked him about that, he said, it wasn't me, it was the team in front of me. So, it's just those kinds of things. You get to know these players a little bit, getting to see them, and that's a huge thing for the combine. And again, Buffalo did a wonderful job with it. There's talk that they could continue to do it in Buffalo, and I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's closer for me as well, so that's a bonus.
Well, and you saw, obviously we've got the Canadian feed of the games on. We saw all the draft, right, some of the top ones on Coach's Corner there. So being close to Toronto and the media market there, they were able to sneak up and do their last ditch of promo and interviews or
Oh
whatever you
yeah.
want with the media up there. So
The one thing that was interesting, and I wrote a little piece, a short piece on this, was there were supposed to be 6 London Knights at the combine. So you've got 2 that are likely going to go in the top 5 picks, and then 4 others that are bubble players, maybe late first round, second, third round players. Um, None of them, they all decided not to take part in the fitness testing. So they did do their interviews throughout the week. Um, Chuck was actually injured. He injured himself in the OHL playoffs with a high ankle sprain, so he wasn't going to take part in the first place. But because their season ended so late with the Memorial Cup, uh, all 6 of them actually exempted themselves from the fitness testing, and only Chuck and Ulevi made themselves available to media afterwards. So that was something I found a little bit interesting when you're a player like Cliff Poo or Victor Mete or even Tyler Parsons, who definitely played himself up in terms of the draft rankings this year. Um, you know, you'd want to. I had the feeling you'd want to go out there and kind of impress a little bit more in the fitness testing, but they did end up leaving, and yeah, I mean, I got a chance to talk to you, Levy, and again, I mentioned this to you. He thinks he's going to be the top defenseman off the board, so that's interesting because there's that debate between Ulevi and Chikrin, and if Edmonton keeps their 4th overall pick, do they go with a defenseman or do they go with a guy like Matthew Tkachuk to play along with Connor McDavid down the road?
for sure. And I guess from the other angle, uh, do you like? I would think personally that potentially a long Mem Cup run would be better than a good showing in pull-ups. Like a guy who, for Kachuk, at the very least, a guy who showed what he can do in a playoff run, really having a good leadership role on that London team, showed way more, and I'd be way more impressed by what I saw during that long run than I would by the fact that he can do one pull-up more than Puliarvi or anyone like that.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I agree with you on that because I think Tkachuk really showed a lot of heart when he scored the 2 goals in the Mem Cup final, and that right there, I mean, he's on a leg and a half, and he's going out there and scoring the overtime winner. Um, and as I mentioned, I think Tyler Parsons this season and in the playoffs especially did a unbelievable job in working his way up into possibly being a late second, early third round pick. And we see goalies sliding in drafts all the time now. It's almost a risk to take a goalie high in the draft because you don't really know what you're getting. And look how fast the goalie market can change with a Matt Murray and Fleury situation. So I I I think you're right in the sense that a long Mem Cup run certainly helped these guys. Again, Cliff Poo is possibly a fifth round pick, but should he have gone and done the fitness testing as well? He showed his skating abilities in the playoffs, and he's a quick footed player, and he's got the hands. But they did do the interview process, and as I mentioned, I think that's the most important part of Combine Week. So
Yeah, for sure. And getting to meet those teams and interview everyone to see those thoughts. So we've got the game back on. I don't know. I assume it's on for you. I
yep,
don't. This series so far, I was, to me, obviously, I think San Jose lucky to be 2-1. Pittsburgh's outplayed them for, well, I think the stat of how much of a lead they've had really says a lot. Pittsburgh has had the lead for much of the series. San Jose, very little. Actually, I believe 0 is the number, if I'm not if I'm not mistaken, which is small because they scored the winner in overtime and then the other game. So from that side, Pittsburgh, and as San Jose's taking a penalty here. We've got Pittsburgh on the power play. What are your thoughts on the Sharks and what they need to do to get back into this series? Obviously, it's only 1-0 right now in Game 4, so anything can happen. They can definitely get back and tie the series up to go back to Pittsburgh, but as they score, so
yeah, and I mean you're gonna give that lethal power play an opportunity like that, and there's no reason why they're not going to be able to put that one past Martin Jones. You mentioned it. Pittsburgh's outplayed them completely in this series so far. I think they're using their speed and they've outshot San Jose on I believe every game so far. So um, you know I think San Jose's got to get back to playing shark hockey, and they're coming from a Western Conference where it's a bruising kind of hockey. Be physical, be hard on the puck. I mean, I watched Phil Kessel play for years in Toronto now, and you get him off his game, and he's not going to play the same kind of hockey that he's been playing. He could easily be the Conn Smythe winner if Pittsburgh goes on to win the series. Him and Matt Murray, like I mean, they've really run the show for Pittsburgh in the playoffs. So and he got in on that goal as well. So
well, he
sorry, go ahead.
no go you go.
I was just gonna say I think it's you know San Jose's got to get back to just playing the body and using the speed that they have because they have some. Eunice Donskoy is probably the fastest guy left in the playoffs. Why
Well,
not?
and yeah,
Why not use him, right?
well, and Kessel, I think that's his second assist. I believe he got one on that first goal. Malkin has set up both those goals as well, and he's a guy that they moved up to the line with Crosby in hopes to get him going. And a goal and an assist so far this game. Obviously, that's doing the trick. But I think going into Game 3, Pete DeBoer from the Sharks, he was saying, well aware. I don't think everyone notices the Penguins are a fast team, incredibly fast team,
Mm-hmm.
up and down. There's not even, their back end is a quick team from that side. So, he was saying that they needed to be able to play the fast game with Pittsburgh. And I don't think that that's the way that they need to go. I think they need to try, as much as it's hard, you can say, well, we need to force Pittsburgh to play our game. Obviously, Pittsburgh's forcing San Jose to play a speed game, and it's not working for them. So to turn around and say, we need to be able to slow them down. And honestly, that's what San Jose is experiencing with Pittsburgh. There was an interview with Burns before the game. He was talking with Scott Oak about the 17 shot attempts, 12 of them blocked by Pittsburgh in game 3. Pittsburgh's getting in the way. They're slowing them down, not letting them get these opportunities, and San Jose is not able to do the same thing. We just saw Kessel feed it through, 2-3 defensemen past Hornqvist to Malkin on the side of the net. Like, that's something that you, on a power play, you probably shouldn't be given that much for Kessel to go cross ice like that. They need to really start getting in the way and making things hard for Pittsburgh.
But isn't that even a scary number? You said 17 shot attempts. That alone should tell you just, San Jose's got to get back on the saddle here and get back in the game. I mean, I don't think they need to play a speed game per se. I think they need, like you said, they need to slow the game down to their momentum. This is the way that, their speed. This is the way that they play is they play more of a broody type of hockey where, they're going to throw the body around. They're going to get the other team's best players off of their game. And, we've seen it with Malkin before. He's gotten bumped around and he gets off his game. Same with Crosby. Crosby gets bumped around a little bit too often and he starts to get off his game. That's what they have to do. They have to do what Joe Thornton was doing in game 1, but do it as a team. And I think San Jose's played a little bit of an individual game so far in the final, and that's really hurt them. Where's Burns been? Burns has done absolutely nothing for San Jose so far in the playoffs. Or sorry, not playoffs, but the finals.
Right. And, the 17 shot attempts, 5 on net, still good from him in game 1, but or game 3. But obviously you got to start finding ways to get those through. And if he's the only one, I thought, the Thornton that you talked about, his physical game against Crosby at the beginning of this series, it was an interesting thing because we have seen Crosby get rattled in the past when people are going after him after the whistle, away from the play. We've seen, and I think rightfully so, he's earned a reputation as a whiner because he lets these things get to him. He goes to the official instead of just letting us play. And I think that's one of the big differences that we've seen is the fact that, we didn't see him getting super rattled when Thornton was going at him, knocking his helmet off, things like that early in the series. He just went out and kept playing. And to me, it's a big difference from what we've seen from this Penguins team as a whole in the past. It's been a few years since they've made it to the finals, and it seems like those times away, those times of adversity have really helped them to learn. Maybe that's not the reason, but to me, it looks like that's the reason that they've really figured out what they need to do to be able to make it to the finals and do well.
Well, and it's just that, play a little bit of old-time hockey, give them a shot after the whistle, but do it within the rules because the refs aren't going to take you off for some simple call after the whistle. That's it. They're not going to be the ones that decide the game. No ref in the Stanley Cup playoffs or in the Stanley Cup finals want to be the one who makes the call that, basically hands over the game. But give them a little jab in the ribs or something. I'm not saying go out there and spear somebody. Play within the rules. Give them a little face wash or something like that. That's the way the game's been played for decades and decades. And that's, like as you mentioned, that's the way San Jose's kind of been playing there. These broody cavemen looking, big players, and they got to use their size to really slow down this smaller, faster Pittsburgh team.
Well, and even like you mentioned the physicality, the after the whistle stuff, and that's something that while we're 4 games into this series, 3.5 almost, these teams don't look like they hate each other yet, and that's what you really you think San Jose down to about looking like they could go down 3-1. They've got to have some fire. They've got to have some anger towards Pittsburgh, and you don't see that. There's nothing after the whistle from them. They're not trying to get anyone fired up, get them rattled. And I agree. San Jose needs to start playing just a little bit more of a game. Do you think from the fact, I look at the San Jose team and they're not, Pittsburgh's got guys who've been around for a while, but San Jose's got some older guys, Thornton, Ward, Paul Martin, some of those guys like that. Do you think that they're starting to wear down a little bit, or is this just a better Pittsburgh team?
I mean, I'm sure it's been a little bit of wear and tear on their body, but for Thornton and Marlowe, you know, this is your first crack at a Stanley Cup final. You have 7 games left, regardless of how they turn out. You've got 7 games left. I, I don't know. I would like to think that if I were in that position, I'd give my all. I would be skating my butt off to try and, you know, cause some mayhem in front of a kid who's 22 years old and doesn't seem to be rattled at all by a game 3 loss. Matt Murray has stood on his head time and time again for Pittsburgh throughout the playoffs, and you've got to get in his face. You have to, stand at the top of his crease and not let him see the puck. That's the way that, if you're a big body like Thornton, if you're not going to move around like some of the younger guys, be that guy in front of the net. It worked for Holmstrom for years in Detroit. And how many goals did he get on just simple rebounds? That's what it's all about. So, I think there is definitely wear and tear, and I think Thornton's got 1 year left in his contract. I'd be shocked if he signed something to extend that at all. So I mean, for me, that's you're down to the last couple of years of your career. This is your shot. He wins the Stanley Cup, he could easily be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He doesn't win a Stanley Cup, maybe he doesn't go in on the first ballot. That's just the way it seems to be in the most part. But I don't know. I think it's interesting you mentioned too the rivalry or the lack thereof in this game, and that's something the NHL works so hard to get in terms of their divisional rivals and their conference rivals. They play so many games against these other teams. They meet
Yeah.
each other twice a year in an 82 game schedule, and then we expect to see rivalry in the finals, and that's just not the way it's going to be. So, maybe there has to be some way of creating more of that rivalry so that we do see, a Sharks team come in here and go down 2-0 while, and now they're going to claw and grit their way back to, a 2-2 series tie or what have you.
So would you, because I like that idea, and I look at, for example, the NFL, a league where 16 game season, you obviously can't play everyone the whole time, and they have weighted schedules. So if you win the Super Bowl, you're going to have a harder schedule next year than you did the year before because you're going to be playing these high level games. Is that kind of what you're thinking of? Is where Pittsburgh's going to play San Jose next year. They're going to play Tampa. They're going to play St. Louis more. They're going to play some of these teams that finished at the top that might not be in their division, in their conference, and give them kind of that different schedule where, sure, you might have an easier time for a team like Florida this year who came up, and it might lead to them having an even easier run at a division than they did this year. I don't know. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, I mean, have a weighted schedule, or even, what, if you see San Jose and Pittsburgh in the final, take one game away from each of the metropolitan, take one metropolitan game away from each team for Pittsburgh, and give them 2 home and home series against San Jose next season.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they play a Friday, Saturday at the beginning of the season and a Friday, Saturday at the end of the season. It just creates that, these guys are going to remember what happened in the Stanley Cup final. They got shown up by Pittsburgh. They're going to go out there and try and draw some blood. That's just the way that you want rivalries to work. And, maybe they do weight the schedule a little bit differently for Pittsburgh. Maybe they play against some more Western Conference teams and they have more travel. For how many years have we seen since they came back into the league, Winnipeg's had the worst travel schedule of anybody. And that seems, I don't know, maybe that doesn't weigh on them. It seems to me that it's waiting on them, though, because they can't seem to get it done when it comes to, down the stretch and in the playoffs. So, there's ways around it. And I think there's some way to figure this out to create more of a rivalry when you see the Western and Eastern Conference. One way is to make the All-Star game more important. Don't have this joke of an All-Star game.
I don't. I'm not sure about that. I think making the All Star game as irrelevant as it is is completely fine because, like, I don't really think baseball's All Star game is any better or worse because it now counts for something. I If it's going to be a joke, I think it'll still be a joke if you make the East or the West do that. I'm not sure that that's going to be the saving grace for the All Star game. The players are going to care because really, if you're going to force everyone to have a team, only really what 5 teams actually have a chance at winning the cup per conference, probably. So I'm not sure that that's the problem, but definitely something to look at. One thing I wanted to talk about the game here real quick. We saw that the last exchange before this series, San Jose was penned in their own zone, and we saw Burns and I believe it was whoever his partner was on the ice at the time. Both laid pretty big hits on Pittsburgh, and which then led to the Pens walking out in front of the net wide open with an opportunity to score. And that's, San Jose's trying to play the body, and we've seen a number of times the last couple of minutes some pretty, not big hits, but sizable contact between the two team San Jose laying the body, and that they might, while obviously listening to our great advice, gotten a little distracted and might be just chasing after the body instead of keeping the eye on the puck there.
They must have us in their ear right now. It's got to be the only reason why they're going after the body now. But no, you know what? It's there's you don't have to throw yourself out of position to play the body. Heck, if we had Milbury on here, he'd be telling them to go out and knock all these guys out. But
that's why we don't have Milbury on here.
Yeah. Hey, can we get him to call in? But no, you know what? Like it's one of those things that you got to be able to play the body, but play it smart. And I think there's a difference between just simply playing the body and throwing yourself out of position. I used to play D when I played, 10 years ago, and there's tons of times where you go into the corner thinking you're going to throw a big hit, and you're not. You throw yourself out of position instead. You get the guy that you're going after, but suddenly there's 2 extra guys open in front of the net now because you're out of position. And that's the difference. You got to play smart hockey, and that's where hockey IQ comes into play. And it's they're starting to come alive a little bit here midway through the second, but they're gonna have to do a lot more to get back in this game.
Yeah, for sure. They started the period 8 minutes without a shot. That's no way to play when you're down 2 goals. All right, let's go. We have a question from someone named Joel. So one thing we talked about, and I think we might have answered this question already. He asked, "Why aren't the Sharks scoring?" And I think that's we've kind of covered that. But from something we haven't talked about, you mentioned the goaltenders a little bit. Martin Jones and Matt Murray has Murray really been that impressive to you more than Jones, or just as a team Pittsburgh's been better?
No, I think as a team Pittsburgh's been better. You know what? I got to come out and say at the beginning of the season, I was on the I like Martin Jones, but I didn't think he was going to be this savior in terms of goaltending, and he has thoroughly impressed me all season long. He's really won that starting job. He's a starting goalie in the NHL, and he's still a young guy. He doesn't have a whole lot of NHL experience, but no, he's played just as well as Murray, I think, in these finals and throughout the playoffs, and probably just not getting as much credit maybe because the team in front of him has not been playing that well. And they, like you mentioned, they've allowed far too many opportunities where the puck is needled through their threaded through their legs, and that's you should be going down. It can create boring hockey, but when you're on the ice going for the Stanley Cup, do you care if you're creating boring hockey? I wouldn't, but
no.
I think he's played incredibly well for San Jose as well.
Yeah, I've been picked Martin Jones on 2 of my 3 fantasy teams this year, so obviously was in on him. And I know Joel's been impressed with his performance throughout the season. And even like there was a maybe a little bit of a lull in the start of the year, but that's what comes from a guy who this is his first time starting. This is his 87th game of the year tonight for a guy who's been the backup for 2 years in LA, and then has been playing in the AHL before that. So definitely the first real go of it for him. And he hasn't looked better or worse than Murray. I think it's just we haven't really had that much of an opportunity to see what he can do. He's made some good saves, hasn't stolen a game, and I think that's what it's going to take for the Sharks is him to step up and steal a game. And I'm not saying that he can't. We saw that against St. Louis, back-to-back shutouts last series. If he, shut out in Game 5, Game 6, you're there. So, and anything can happen in a Game 7. So,
I'm interested what your thoughts are if Pittsburgh goes up, let's say 3-0 in the next couple minutes, or even 4-0 through the next period. Is there a Reimer sighting in the Stanley Cup Finals?
Ooh, I don't think so. The main reason why I could see them maybe going to him is just to give Jones that bit of a break. Let's say Pittsburgh scores 2 in the next 5, or they're up 4-0 after 2. Sure, give him a period off, get Reimer in there. But there's no way Reimer is going to get any time to start, just because even if you think he might be better suited, he hasn't played. He hasn't started since the beginning of April. So 2 months without game action is a little tough to go. And last round, I said the exact opposite about Marc-Andre Fleury. I thought that they should have stuck with him over Murray. And thinking about it more, you don't want to go that way. You don't want to give a guy, especially when you're down, go with the best odds. You don't necessarily need a flyer. So, there's times to take chances and there's times to not. Maybe if they're down 3-0, sure, but Martin Jones has shown exactly what he can do this whole time. So,
I was thinking more like if, let's say they go down 4-0 with, going into the third, same idea as you. Maybe you give him a period off because, as you mentioned, it's his 87th game of the year after playing maybe a total of 60 games in his first 2 years. So, but I agree. I think as much as, Reimer's a class act, you got to stick with the guy who's got the hot hand. And I think, Martin Jones has carried them through to this point. So he's the guy that you want in the net. And I think they got to start playing in front of him if they're going to come back.
All right. We've got a couple more questions from Joel. He's clearly, while he's not on the show, he's clearly getting antsy in the background. And I figured out what he tried to say after a while, because his actual tweet was, the better question is, why won't you let me be on the show, love? And I wasn't sure exactly what he meant. And then he doubled down. He said, how many times can Carl say offensive things before he isn't allowed to do love shows? And then I realized he means live shows. So I think the real answer, Joel, we've had Andrew. This is what, your third, fourth time on the show?
Third or fourth, yeah.
Yeah, and only Joel and you have been in the same room, I believe, once. So
once,
I think it's just too much Leafs going on with you and him. It's just that's reason number one.
Too much blue and white blood, eh?
Exactly. He would just sit here and talk about how you thought Austin Matthews was at the media and how he was with his pull-ups, and we don't have an hour to sit here and talk about Austin Matthews with you and Joel. So, so another question was from Chad at CJ Milroy over on Twitter, asking about Malkin and him being put on the top line. He asks if there's any issues about just if you think it's him being a new dad is his question, or if he's just being crabby. I don't think that this has anything to do with him having a kid. Obviously, right now he's out on the road anyways. Him being a new father's I doubt they brought their newborn on the road with them and kept them in the hotel room. But I just think that Malkin's a very streaky player. He has been for a number of years, and that's really what it comes down to for me. And we've already seen today his performance has been quite good. So
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, and again, I go back to Kessel on this one because he was the same. Very streaky player. You'd get 7 or 8 good games in a row from him, and then you'd kind of go, 3 games without anything. So I think Malkin's just kind of. I mean, he's been all over the ice though throughout the first 3 games of this series. He just hasn't been able to capitalize on his opportunities. It's not about not getting his chances. He's been getting his chances. He's been, finding opportunities and playing well. It was just all about capitalizing. And then, tonight he's taken full advantage. So, I get, I tend to agree. Maybe he does it differently, but I would not bring my newborn on the road with me. Um, you know, let's keep. Was it Nikita's her name, I believe. Let's keep Nikita at home and just keep things calm on the road. He needs
yes,
to get his sleep too before game 3 and 4. So, but
yeah,
no, it's I think Malkin's done a good job at. He even got into it in game 2, I believe, against Thornton. Was it?
yep.
Just some pushing and shoving, and he's not a small guy. He's willing to throw him down as well. So, it's just about taking advantage of your opportunities, and I think he's starting to come around now on that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and we've seen it here. Joel asks one more question. I think at this point he's just trolling me. He asks, and I'll let you answer this question. Who is a better hockey player, Joe Sakic or Wayne Gretzky?
Oof.
So I think I think that's a question that really answers itself. Even as a big Avalanche fan, not foolish enough to say Joe Sakic, owner of the record for most game-winning goals in the playoffs, is better than Wayne Gretzky. It's great players, they both are, but he's one of them's called the Great One for a reason.
I don't know if you heard the story with. I'm just going to go on a little minor tangent here for a second, but they interviewed Wayne Gretzky about his encounter with Muhammad Ali,
Hmm.
and it was in the dressing room in LA one time when Gretzky was playing for Edmonton, and Ali walked in and said, went up to him and said, "So I hear they call you the Great One." And Wayne said he looked at him and said, "Yeah, yeah, they call me the Great One." And Ali looked at him again and said, "I'm still the greatest." And Gretzky said he was looking around for Dave Semenko, waiting for him to come and stand up for him. But and you're right, he is called the Great One for a reason. I think you can judge them on if you break up their games into separate attributes. I think there's spots where maybe Sakic does maybe jump over Gretzky a little bit, but all in all, I mean, Gretzky holds records for a reason. He's one of, if not the greatest player to ever step on the ice in terms of offensive purity skill. So yeah, I mean, I way to troll there, Joel.
Not biting on that one. Going back to the goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury obviously has a number of years left on his contract. Matt Murray's been the guy for this playoffs and has them almost a game and a third away from the Stanley Cup. The Penguins obviously are going to have the question to answer this offseason: keep both or move one. Presumably, if you're moving one, you're moving Fleury. What do you think happens with the goaltending there?
Well, I mean, it'd be easy if we were getting expansion next year, then you just protect Murray and hope that Fleury walks. But um, I think it's a tough position to be in because at this point you go into next year knowing that you have a goaltender like Murray sitting on the bench behind Fleury, or do you go in knowing that you have a guy like Fleury that you're paying big money to? I mean, and that's the thing. There's going to be a goalie market out there. People are going to want Fleury, but he has significant change on his contract, and if the cap in fact does go down below 70 million next year, which has been speculated, I mean that could really hurt whatever team decides to take on a Fleury contract. So the thing that and I'll compare it a little bit to football with running backs and how they become so a dime a dozen. Um, Goaltenders have become sort of interchangeable in certain aspects of the game. We've seen a lot of teams go to this sort of 1A, 1B platooning over the last few years. And then just to have somebody like Murray come in when Fleury goes down with an injury, kind of jump the depth charts over Zakov and into the starting role. And, to be able to basically run the playoffs with him, right? Um, that just kind of goes to show you just where goaltending is at. Is that you could easily lose your job if you go down with an injury like Fleury did. You might not be coming back and starting for the team that you've been starting for the last 8-9 years.
Yeah, and a lot can change, but I'm interested to see if there is a market for Fleury this summer because he has 3 more years at 5.75 million left on his contract. Not huge. One of I'd say it's probably top 15. I don't have the exact rankings out here, but there's some goalies obviously making more money out there than him. But there's going to be Frederick Anderson. There's going to be one of those guys in Anaheim are going to be available. One of the guys in Dallas are going to be available. There's going to be guys in the draft. There's going to be a number of goaltenders being made available.
Andre Pavlik in Winnipeg. You got
Pavlik in Winnipeg
coming up.
Yeah. So you have that collection of goaltenders, and I look around and there's not a lot of teams that really have a need in net. The Leafs are looking for a goalie, but they're not looking for one right now. So they're, do they really want Fleury for 3 years and then have to get rid of him, start paying him now when you can just get him later? Calgary's in need of someone. Other than that, there's not a whole lot out there that there's a glaring hole in net. So I'd be interested to see if Fleury moves, if it's not simply just a salary dump for this team that's going to be up against the cap. If the cap stays the same, which there's a strong chance that it may be. Daly said that if it goes up, it might be just about $1 million. So saying it's the same, they're sitting right at the cap right now. So someone's got to move for them to be able to bring back. Cullen's going to be gone most likely. He might retire. They've got a few UFAs. Bo Bennett's a restricted free agent, and then they'll lose Ben Lovejoy and Justin Schultz likely. But so they could bring back this exact same roster. Sure, don't get me wrong, but I think they'd really like to be able to have some of that. So I'm not sure. If you were to be looking at moving Marc-Andre Fleury, I would expect the price tag to be quite low on him.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to pay anything for a guy like that, you're going to have to expect that Pittsburgh to maybe eat a little bit of that contract too. But then again, like you said, they're going to be right up against the cap. So maybe you see it like a Clarkson for Horton deal where you throw Horton to the Wolves in Pittsburgh and you get, or that you're gonna find a way around it where you can put some money on long-term IR and possibly get rid of Fleury's contract as well. So that's likely if he moves, that's probably what you're gonna see, or a useful player coming back. But again, you mentioned it. I don't know what team's gonna want to pay close to $6 million for a guy who's 3 more years, and you don't know the landscaping for where the salary cap is going to go in the next 3 years. And on top of that, you've got a guy he's got concussion issues now.
Yeah,
you're talking about a guy who got a slap shot to the mask and was concussed.
Yeah, and that's always something that's a tough one to really tell, especially without him being back into a game, to know what you're going to get really from him. So,
Mm-hmm.
one thing you talked about, it made me think. You mentioned Nathan Horton. And there was some rumors coming out this week of some potential if there is expansion. Again, so many ifs and question marks with expansion. It leads to weird things for what are you going to do for goalies? What are you going to do for protecting players? But one of the things is that there's a rumor that players with a no movement clause are going to be forced to be kept. So you have to protect players in no movement clauses, which leads to the very interesting scenario of Nathan Horton and Chris Pronger, current players on active rosters, whose contracts will still be intact when that happens. Actually, Pronger's would be the worst of those because the expansion draft presumably would be before contracts expire. And so even if his contract will expire about 2 weeks after, and the Coyotes would be forced, if it works out, I'm sure they'd find some loophole because Pronger works for the league now. So he just said, you know what, guys, maybe we shouldn't make the Coyotes keep me. But an interesting thing. What do you think about that being how they handle the no movement clause?
First of all, even the mention of Pronger's name frustrates me because I think the whole situation with him still being on a roster while working for the league is just a complete joke.
Yeah.
But I think they'd probably look at finding a way to kind of work it so that, if it's a guy on long-term IR and he has a no movement clause and it's a guy who likely won't be playing again, like, let's be honest, there's a very slim chance that Horton ever plays again in the NHL.
Yeah.
I think if there's that kind of those kind of stipulations on a contract, there's a chance that maybe they work around that and say, that guy does not have to be protected. Because at the same time, no new team coming in is going to take a Pronger contract and, say, well, maybe he'll leave the league and come out of retirement and work for us or play for us. It's just,
yeah.
And I think they'll find some kind, as you mentioned, they're going to find some kind of loophole. They don't want to screw Arizona like that. And I can tell you right now, there's a good chance they don't want to ruin anything like that for the Leafs either.
I was going to say, if anything, it's the Leafs that they want to protect more.
Yeah.
I like your idea. They could very easily say, you have to pass a physical to be on this list. If you can't pass a physical, you don't need to be protected. So
exactly. Yeah.
So Pittsburgh took a penalty. Russ took one with just over 2 minutes left, killed that penalty. Even got a mediocre scoring chance on the PK. So it looks like we're going to be going into this period down 2-0. I haven't seen, there was a brief time in that second period, right in the middle there, where San Jose looked to be fighting back. But they really seem to have lost that. I don't know about you, but I'm just about ready to call not just this game, but this series. San Jose hasn't shown me anything that shows that they've got the fight necessary to get back into this one.
Yeah, and I mean that power play didn't look that great at all, and now you're talking about a team that possibly goes back to Pittsburgh down 3-1 in the series. It'd be great for Pittsburgh to go home 3-1 and possibly win it in Pittsburgh. So and Pittsburgh's just showing more fight all series long. So and Hornquist is just taking one off the head there too.
Just domed one. We honestly, on that power play, we saw the exact opposite of what San Jose did. They tried to get that backdoor pass across to Vlasic on that power play, and Pittsburgh got a stick in the way. The exact opposite when Pittsburgh crossed it under multiple San Jose sticks. It's just the little things like that aren't so little when you're actually out there. You got to be able to get in those lanes and stop it. And San Jose hasn't been able to do that.
Yeah, and it's the same thing we've been talking about all night. It's just finding a way to get something done in San Jose. They just haven't done a great job of playing their type of game, and that's the kind of game you need if you're going to do anything in the finals.
For sure. We got another question in. if the Sharks don't win the cup this year, is that it for Marleau and Thornton? Do they go without a cup? Which is one question in and of itself, and we'll start with that one. But I've got a follow-up of my own. Do you think this is their last go for Marleau and Thornton?
Yeah, I they won't get a cup if they don't win this year. Um, as I mentioned earlier, Thornton has 1 year left on his contract. Um, his wife's from Switzerland. I know when during the lockout when he played over for HC Davos, he had a great time in Switzerland. I would not be shocked if he decided to go back there after his final year of his contract, but they won't be getting back to the finals next year. And I think that would be it for him at least. And Marlowe, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much more he has in the tank, but I think those would be it would be truly disappointing for Thornton to retire without a cup, and it's going to be a shame. With he's just always been one of the best playmakers of his generation, let's say. The way he's been able to set people up, and for a big guy as well to move the puck the way he does. Yeah, I think personally, I think that's it for them if they don't win this year.
For sure, I'm in the same boat. But it leads me to my other question, which is, going into this year and last year when they took the C off of Thornton and kind of started to progress this team towards a Pavelski, Couture, Burns-led team, there was a lot of talk on, do they move Thornton? What do they do with that? They both have 1 year left. They're both 36 years old right now. So by the end of next year, they'll be 37. What do you see, if any, if the Sharks lose this series, do you see any big changes coming for them? Because other than that, there's not a whole lot of money coming off the books. A lot of this team is still intact. It's really Polak, who they got from the Leafs, is going to be gone. Zubris, who's up in age as well, and then Nick Spaulding, another deadline guy, and then Thornton and Marleau. Everyone else is around for at least next year, maybe a couple more. So from that side, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot that they can do. Do you expect this team to pretty much be the same next year?
I think it's going to be pretty similar. You've got young guys like Thomas Hurdle, who you're looking for more from because he had a great start to his rookie season, and then just seems to have fallen off the map. You're going to get more from Jonas Donskoy. You're going to get, hopefully, you get Timo Meyer coming up as well, right? So you've got some good prospects in the pipeline if you're San Jose. Your goaltending is basically intact. You're going to look for a backup as Reimer's going to be done as well. But I don't see big changes coming for San Jose. They just, nobody's going to want a Thornton with 1 year left on his contract, maybe at the deadline. But going into 2016-17, it's going to be a pretty similar team. And that's why I don't see them going back to the final. I just, name a number of teams in the last decade that have gone back-to-back finals. And, you look at Detroit and Pittsburgh being that one. But other than that, there hasn't been a lot.
Well, and especially with that, next year there's going to be 4 guys 36 years or older on that squad. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely not a recipe for repeating after a long cup run. I know this year I was skeptical if they could even make the playoffs. And it's tough to say that they won't after making this run. I know that there'll be a popular opinion, but I would not be surprised to see them out of the playoffs with just guys being tired. You're used to having a bit of a longer break. They're going to have, not they'll be getting back started up in September. Some of the guys playing in the World Cup. We'll see if maybe they end up backing out and don't actually play, but certainly, and perhaps Jones, he's never, I talked about how much he has played this year versus lack of games in the past. He's young, so it's not as big of an issue, but still that off-season conditioning program that he's used to is gonna be switched up a little bit. So we'll see how much that impacts him and the rest of the team. Joel has one more question, and I I don't know if I can answer it. He has two. He says, Carl, without using a calculator, what is 678 times 8,123,457 divided by 54 times 21? Not sure if I can actually pull that one off. I don't know if you even recall the numbers I just spewed out.
No.
I'm going to go with about 5 billion. That's going to, no, 10 billion. That'll be my answer, Joel, for when you finally listen to this. I assume he's listening live, but obviously with these questions, he does have one serious question. And I don't know if you mentioned this, I know you mentioned it before we were actually live, but don't know if you mentioned on the show. If you were Shanny, who are you taking first overall in the draft? See, there's this Austin Matthews love talk. I told you this is what it would get to, but who would you take first overall?
If I'm Shandy, I'm taking Austin Matthews, and having sat through their little media scrums at the combine and listening to them talk, and Patrick Laine is a confident player, and it's not a cockiness. It's a sort of swagger that you want in a player that you're going to get. So I do believe Patrick Laine is going to be a heck of a player. Is he going to be the one thing? And I'm sure a lot of people have read something on this already, but he did say within 5 years he's going to be better than Ovechkin was. He's going to be the game's top player. I don't know if that's a pretty bold statement. So if he believes that, good for him, good on him. Go out there and prove it. But he's likely going to be doing that in Winnipeg. And that's not a knock at his game, because like I said, he's a heck of a player. He's got a wicked shot. He throws the body around, so he's a big kid. But the Leafs need a center, and I think I talked with you about this before, and the fact that the Leafs have not had a good centerman, a star number one centerman, since Matt Sundin. And a lot of people looked at Sundin and said, well, was he really yeah, he was. He just was never surrounded with the right players. And right now, if you look at the Leafs prospects, if you look at what they've got coming up, this is going to be an exciting team in the next few years. And I think if you get a guy like Austin Matthews as your number one center, that gives you wiggle room to move a guy like Tyler Bozak as well, and possibly maybe get a little bit of a return for him in the off season or heading into next year. So I would go Austin Matthews. And I think I really don't think there's any doubt that they will go Austin Matthews when the draft comes around.
Yeah, it's looking more and more like it's going to be Matthews, then Laine, and then Puljujarvi. And then the question marks start coming at 4 with Edmonton. Do they keep the pick? If they do they after all this time of everyone saying, well, Edmonton needs to draft a defenseman, it's looking, you mentioned Matthew Tkachuk as the potential of 4, so it could be another year of Edmonton taking the forward. Or do they actually move down and take one of the defensemen that you mentioned earlier? So, well, Andrew, I think. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, with Edmonton, I know Tkachuk is on the radar for the Canucks as well. He's a solid power forward, the same way his dad played. And if you're Edmonton, you know what? Here's some advice. Get some scouting to help you in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds, because your first round picks, they're not going to save you. They're not going to be your saviors, because we've seen you guys grab picks for the last 5 years in the first round, and it has done nothing for your club. Your club still has not made the playoffs.
Well, and I'll give them the advice that if you're going to trade that pick, trade it to Vancouver, because Jim Benning over there, not a fan of his track record so far. So I think, and I'm stealing this from someone. I'd love to give them credit, but do know it's not my thought. But the sign of a good GM is one who finds the GM who's dumber than him and continues to trade with that guy. So if Chiarelli can figure out that Jim Benning's that guy for him, then he should be good to go and go move number 4. And because Vancouver's not picking too far below them, so they'll still get a good first if they just move down a little bit there. Be able to take the defenseman and get some other pieces in there. So, Andrew, we're just about to come up on the start of the third period. So why don't we wrap this up so that we can go and hit the washroom if we need to before the third period gets started underway, and do that. But is there anything that you have coming up on the Hockey Writers? Obviously, you were at the Combine. You wrote a little bit about what the Knights were doing there with their break from the Combine, but anything you got coming up over at the Hockey Writers?
Nothing in particular. I kind of go on a daily basis and see what I feel like writing, but I'll be definitely doing some draft coverage. I've got another prospect profile coming out on Charlie McAvoy, hopefully in the next couple of days. Another great kid with a lot of potential, so keep an eye on Charlie McAvoy coming out of the U.S. development program. But no, I just keep looking at what's coming up, and hopefully I can keep you guys all informed.
Awesome. And you were on Twitter at Andrew G. Forbes. Make sure to give him a follow for great junior content. You're obviously following. You followed London quite thoroughly this year, following the Leafs, a lot of the draft. So,
and I'll have some fantasy content coming back in September. Absolutely.
Going to be having that. And I personally enjoyed that content as I won my league again. Did not win the listener league though, so we'll see. Perhaps I'll have to listen harder, and maybe I'll just get you to draft my team for me.
Yeah.
Unless you're in it, and then
there we go. Maybe this year I'll be in it with you guys.
There you go. All right. Thanks for coming on. It was a blast. Thanks for filling in for Joel, who clearly rattled that he's not on the show this week. We'll see if he's back next week. See if he can get himself under control, and with the editors being able to do their thing, if we can get him back on the show. So
definitely.
Thank you very much. And anything else you wanted to add before we finish?
No, always glad to come on with you guys, and always looking to step in and when Joel needs to take a little break. So
Joel gets a little timeout. So awesome. We'll enjoy the third period of this game. We'll be back next week. We're going to actually be doing our mock draft with Mark Scheig, who you mentioned. He's going to be joining us, as well as a couple other folks, doing our mock draft like last year, going through the first 15 picks of the first round. We're going to see who ends up where. So that should be good. And obviously we'll touch on what's happened so far. If the Cup Finals are done, if it ends in 5 or 6, we'll wrap that. If we're going to be previewing Game 7, obviously we'll be talking a lot of Cup Finals, because if this goes 7, there's definitely going to be a lot of changes in this series. So we'll have a lot to talk about.
Definitely.
So thank you guys. You can find us on Twitter at the Fourth Line Pod with the number 4, Facebook.com/the Fourth Line Podcast. We're live, and I've never actually played the outro music live, so we're a little late on that. But here we go. So yeah, find us over at Twitter, Fourth Line Pod, Facebook.com/Fourth Line Podcast. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, thehockeywriters.com/radio. You can find all of our archives over at those places. And if you want to send us an email, fourthlinepod@gmail.com. We'll be back next week again, as I mentioned, with a brand new show. Andrew, thank you very much for coming on with us. Always a blast. Catch you later.